September 19th, 1944, 0730 hours. The morning fog hung like a burial shroud over the fields near Bézange-la-Petite, France. Panther tank commander Unteroffizier Hoffmann peered through his cupola into the gray void that swallowed everything beyond 30 meters. His hands trembled, not from the September chill, but from what he had glimpsed moments before through a brief break in the mist. An American tank destroyer, if that's what it was, had materialized from nowhere, fired twice, and vanished before his gunner could traverse the turret even halfway. The burning hulk of another Panther 50 meters to their left testified this was no hallucination. 42 Panthers of the 113th Panzer Brigade had rolled into battle that morning, supremely confident in their mechanical superiority. The Panther, with its high-velocity 75mm gun and sloped armor that could deflect most Allied shells, represented the pinnacle of German engineering. These veterans of the Eastern Front had been told repeatedly that American armor was inferior, hastily built, mechanically unreliable, crewed by inexperienced men who relied on numbers rather than skill. What they encountered in the fog around Ericourt would shatter every assumption about armored warfare they had carried from Russia. The M18 Hellcat, a name they would learn only after capture or survival, was about to demonstrate that Americans had reimagined tank warfare itself, trading armor for a speed that rendered traditional tactics obsolete. Birth of a beast. The M18's genesis began not as a response to German armor, but from a uniquely American military philosophy. In December 1941, Lieutenant Colonel Andrew Davis Bruce, commanding the newly formed Tank Destroyer Center at Fort Meade, Maryland, studied the German blitzkrieg with an engineer's eye rather than a traditionalist's reverence. His revolutionary conclusion, rather than meeting tanks with tanks in heavyweight slugging matches, why not create a vehicle that could strike and vanish before the enemy could respond? Bruce's vision prioritized three characteristics in order: speed, firepower, and crew efficiency. Armor protection, the holy grail of German design, ranked a distant fourth. This philosophy would have been considered madness in the Wehrmacht, where the progression from Panzer III to Panther to Tiger represented an inexorable march toward thicker armor and bigger guns. The initial requirements called for a fast tank destroyer using torsion bar suspension, a Wright Continental R975 engine, and initially a 37mm gun. The design evolved rapidly through prototypes until the T-70 76mm gun motor carriage emerged, the vehicle that would become the M18. By July 1943, when the first production M18 rolled off the assembly line at Buick's Flint, Michigan plant, a vehicle had been created that would challenge fundamental assumptions of armored warfare. Powered by a 9-cylinder, 350 to 400 horsepower Wright R975 radial aircraft engine, the same power plant used in the M4 Sherman, but in a chassis weighing 20 tons instead of 33, the M18 achieved speeds that seemed impossible for tracked vehicles. The speed demon. The Hellcat could reach 55-60 miles per hour on roads, with some crews reporting even higher speeds in ideal conditions. This wasn't marginally faster than German armor. It existed in an entirely different category. The Panther's maximum road speed of 29 mph seemed respectable until compared to the M18's ability to maintain 40 mph across rough terrain. This speed advantage stemmed from more than just the engine. Every aspect had been optimized for rapid movement. The M18 used an innovative Torque-matic automatic transmission derived from Buick's civilian designs, allowing drivers to concentrate on maneuvering while the transmission handled gear changes. Panther drivers wrestled with manual gearboxes requiring double clutching and precise timing. The torsion bar suspension provided a steady ride at high speeds. German tanks still used leaf spring or interleaved road wheel systems that limited high-speed travel over rough terrain. An M18 could maintain 40 mph across broken ground that would force a Panther to slow to 10 mph or risk throwing a track. The Tank Destroyer Doctrine. The American Tank Destroyer Doctrine, formalized in Field Manual 18-5 and refined through 1943, represented a complete rejection of German armored philosophy. Tank destroyers were to be held in reserve, responding rapidly to enemy armor concentrations. Instead of dueling at range, they would use superior mobility to achieve flanking positions, destroy enemy armor from sides and rear, then redeploy before counterattack. The 704th Tank Destroyer Battalion had originally trained on the M3 gun motor carriage before receiving production Hellcats. They had spent months perfecting techniques that would maximize the M18's speed advantage. They were about to demonstrate these tactics against some of Germany's most experienced tank crews. First contact at 07:15 on September 19th, as German Panthers crept forward through fog at 5 mph, straining to see through the mist. Lieutenant Edwin Leiper's platoon of 4 M18s from Company C, 704th Tank Destroyer Battalion, was positioned near Bézange-la-Petite. The M18s had been in position since before dawn, engines idling quietly, crews scanning assigned sectors. Leiper saw a German tank gun muzzle appearing from the fog just 30 feet away. The first indication the Germans had of the M18's presence came when an American tank destroyer roared to life, accelerating from standstill to 30 mph in seconds, acceleration that would take a Panther nearly 30 seconds to achieve. The M18 burst from concealment, raced to a flanking position, and fired rounds into the nearest Panther's side before the German turret had traversed even halfway. In 5 minutes, 5 German tanks were knocked out for the loss of 1 M18. The engagement demonstrated systematic destruction by an enemy that refused to fight according to established rules. The mechanical mismatch, the disparities between Panther and M18 created a fundamental combat mismatch. The Panther's turret, weighing nearly 7 tons with thick armor and long gun, required 60 seconds for full rotation using hydraulic traverse. Under combat conditions with engines at low RPM to minimize detection, traverse speeds dropped further. The M18's turret, weighing just over 2 tons, could track targets in any direction within seconds, while Panther crews still struggled to locate threats. The Panther, despite its fearsome reputation, suffered chronic mechanical problems. Final drives designed for a 35-ton vehicle were installed in the 45-ton Panther. During the September 19th engagement, several Panthers were abandoned due to mechanical failure during attempted pursuit of the M18s. Early feedback from M18 crews indicated Their vehicles could go hundreds of miles under trying conditions without major repairs. The air-cooled Wright engine, while loud, was nearly indestructible. The automatic transmission required minimal maintenance. The torsion bar suspension had few parts to fail. Tactical innovation. As morning fog lifted around 900, the full sophistication of American tank destroyer tactics became apparent. The M18s operated not as individuals, but as coordinated teams using radio communication to vector each other onto targets. Under Captain Tom Evans's direction, the lead platoon of Company C served as bait, while two other platoons advanced on German flanks. Tank destroyer doctrine in perfect execution. The coordination extended beyond individual platoons. Combined arms tactics integrated M18s as mobile striking forces within a sophisticated system of armored infantry, engineers, artillery, and tanks. By noon on September 19th, the 113th Panzer Brigade's attack had stalled. Sergeant Henry R. Hartmann's M18 alone knocked out 6 German tanks, most of them Panthers. The mathematics were incomprehensible to German commanders. Panthers costing 100,100 Reichsmarks each, and requiring 2,000 man-hours to build, were being destroyed by vehicles costing $57,500 that could be assembled in a fraction of the time. The psychological warfare. By September 20th, as the 111th Panzer Brigade joined the battle, German tank crews experienced something unprecedented: fear of an enemy they couldn't effectively fight. These were men who had faced T-34s in Ukraine, survived Kursk, learned that German tactical skill and technical superiority could overcome numerical disadvantages. The Panther had been their vindication, a tank that could destroy any Allied vehicle while remaining immune to return fire. Now that certainty was shattered. Panthers designed as offensive weapons to dominate battlefields found themselves desperately trying to defend against an enemy that refused to stand and fight. The speed difference created tactical situations German training never addressed. Some units began operating Panthers in pairs, back to back, attempting to cover all angles. But this required stationary positioning, surrendering all initiative. It also assumed reliable communication between vehicles, which most German tanks lacked. Industrial reality. Behind the tactical revolution lay an industrial reality German officers were only beginning to grasp. The M18 wasn't just faster, it was easier to produce, maintain, and replace. Production began in July 1943, with 2,507 units built by October 1944. Peak production hit 258 units monthly in January 1944. Each required approximately 500 man-hours to complete, compared to 2,000 for a Panther. American factories could replace every M18 lost at Aircourt in less than 2 days. German Panther production at absolute peak managed 380 vehicles monthly across all factories, including training vehicles and replacements for all fronts. The loss of 39 Panthers at Aircourt represented over a week's total production. Evolving tactics. As battle continued through late September, American crews refined tactics based on combat experience. On September 20th, M18s employed new tactics, sprinting across open ground at maximum speed toward German positions near Coincourt. Panthers, caught completely off guard, managed only wild shots before M18s were among them. The psychological effect was devastating. German crews knew Americans were coming. They could hear engines from a kilometer away. But knowing and responding were different things. M18s covered the distance in under a minute, moving too fast for effective tracking. The Abrams connection. On September 24th, Lieutenant Colonel Creighton Abrams coordinated a combined attack with the 704th Tank Destroyer Battalion. Sherman tanks advanced slowly, drawing German attention, while M18s infiltrated through woods and dead ground. Panthers engaged Shermans at long range, confident in superior guns and armor, when M18s burst from multiple concealment points. German tanks caught in crossfire couldn't respond effectively to threats from multiple directions. By September 25th, General der Panzertruppen Hasso von Manteuffel, commanding 5th Panzer Army, issued new tactical instructions, essentially admitting defeat. Enemy tank destroyers of exceptional speed operating in this sector do not pursue, do not engage in mobile battle. These instructions reduced the Panzer, designed as a mobile offensive weapon, to a static pillbox. They surrendered all initiative and acknowledged that German armor could no longer dominate through superior tactics and technology. The final tally. By battle's end, the 704th Tank Destroyer Battalion had knocked out 39 German tanks for the loss of 4 M18s destroyed and 3 damaged. This remarkable kill ratio vindicated American tank destroyer doctrine dramatically. The battle demonstrated that the entire German conception of tank warfare, based on armor, firepower, and deliberate movement, could be negated by sufficient speed and flexibility. The M18's success offered profound lessons about military innovation. Germans had pursued linear development, more armor, bigger guns, heavier vehicles. Each generation incrementally improved, fighting the same way with greater capability. Americans, constrained by transatlantic shipping and facing an enemy who had already optimized conventional tank design, chose revolution over evolution. The M18 didn't try beating German tanks at their own game. It changed the game entirely. Beyond Ericourt. The ultimate test came during December 1944's Battle of the Bulge. As German forces launched their last major offensive, M18-equipped battalions rushed to critical points. Their speed again proved decisive. Team de Sobry, with just 4 M18s from the 705th Tank Destroyer Battalion, used the Hellcat's top speed to reach blocking positions ahead of the 2nd Panzer Division, one of few documented cases where the M18's maximum speed was actually utilized. Final European theater statistics told the story. M18s claimed 526 enemy vehicles destroyed while losing 216, a 2.41 kill ratio, highest of any American tank or tank destroyer. These numbers became more impressive considering M18s often served in improvised roles, usually direct fire support for infantry, maintaining exceptional effectiveness even outside their intended role. Revolutionary legacy. The M18 story extends beyond World War II. During Korea, 6 and 50 early production M18s were converted to M39 armored utility vehicles, proving the chassis's enduring value. Former Wehrmacht officers advising the new Bundeswehr in the 1950s universally recommended against heavy tanks in favor of mobile systems inspired by the M18. The psychological impact on German tank crews lasted long after the war. Veterans consistently rated the M18 as the most feared American armored vehicle, ahead of the M26 Pershing heavy tank, or tank-killing aircraft. The M18 had not just defeated German armor tactically, but had broken the psychological superiority German tank crews had enjoyed since 1940. The hunters had become the hunted. Modern armored warfare doctrine, emphasizing mobility, situational awareness, and networked operations over pure firepower and protection, traces directly to lessons learned from M18 success. The Israeli Merkava, American M1 Abrams, German Leopard 2, all incorporate M18 experience, mechanical reliability, superior situational awareness, critical tactical mobility. At a 1985 reunion at Aracourt, veterans from both sides walked the battlefield where the M18 revolutionized armored warfare. A restored M18 demonstration showed that even 40 years later, it could still achieve remarkable top speed, racing across fields where so many Panthers had met their end. German veterans watched in silence, testament to the enduring impact of the revolution they had witnessed. The lasting revolution. The story of German tankers encountering the M18 Hellcat represents more than tactical innovation or technological superiority. It represents fundamental revolution in military thinking, a moment when an entire warfare philosophy was rendered obsolete by a radically different approach. The Germans had perfected the traditional tank, taking the concept as far as possible with vehicles like the Tiger II. Americans with the M18 didn't build a better traditional tank. They built something entirely different that changed armored combat's nature. German tankers facing M18s at Aracourt weren't just outfought. They were confronted with evidence that their approach to armored warfare needed fundamental reconsideration. Their heavily armored Panthers and Tigers, engineering marvels though they were, became vulnerable when facing an enemy refusing to engage on traditional terms. With 526 enemy vehicles destroyed for 216 M18s lost, the numbers tell part of the story. But the real victory was psychological and doctrinal. The M18 proved wars could be won not necessarily by the side with biggest tanks or thickest armor, but by the side that could adapt, innovate, and implement new concepts fastest. In the end, German tankers who survived M18 encounters carried with them warfare's profound lesson. As in evolution, it's not always the strongest that survives, but often the most adaptable. The M18 Hellcat, racing across French battlefields at impossible speeds, firing and vanishing like a ghost, represented that adaptability in purest form. The revolution was complete. Pure heavy tank dominance was challenged, and the importance of mobility, flexibility, and speed had been dramatically demonstrated. German tankers witnessing this transformation firsthand were watching not just tactical defeat, but the birth of new armored warfare concepts. Their experience, preserved in military archives and historical studies, stands as evidence that sometimes in warfare, speed and agility can indeed defeat armor and firepower, especially when that speed reaches 60 miles per hour with a 76mm gun attached. The M18 Hellcat had done more than destroy German tanks. It had destroyed German certainty about armored warfare, shattered assumptions about tank combat, and demonstrated that revolutionary thinking could overcome evolutionary perfection. For German tank crews who faced them in the fog at Aricourt and beyond, Hellcats represented not just a new American weapon, but a new era in mechanized warfare, one where the race would indeed go to the swift.